The Yak-15 was a first-generation Russian jet fighter that was developed by the Yakovlev Design Bureau right after World War II. It was designed and constructed by reverse engineering German Junkers turbojet engine and a Swedish Saab 21R attack jet plane. The Yak-15 was one of only two jet aircraft to be successfully converted from a piston-powered aircraft and actually into production. Around 280 of the Yak-15s were built in 1947. The beginning of the Yak-15 starts on April 9, 1945, when the Council of People's Commissars ordered the Yakovlev OKB to develop a single-seat jet fighter to be equipped with a single German Jumo 004 engine. The deadline on the project was razor thin, so there was little patience. It's Soviet Russia, so they didn't have a whole lot of patience. They basically come up with an idea, wanted something, ran to whoever probably best had the capability to deliver the project, and just told them, like, look, this is the deadline or else. So there was no patience for long drawn out projects. So to save time and development hours, Yakovlev engineers decided to base the design on an existing aircraft they already had developed. It was the Yak-3, which was actually a piston-driven aircraft. They decided to remove the traditional piston and prop-driven engine and install a jet engine in a pod below the fuselage so that its exhaust exited under the aircraft. They installed heat shields to protect the aluminum sheet metal of the plane's fuselage from the heat of the jet's exhaust. The plane will be outfitted with two 23mm cannons. An additional fuel tank was added above the engine to supply the thirsty jet engine. The maximum fuel load was now 1,300 pounds. The vertical stabilizer was also enlarged in anticipation of higher top speeds. Obviously, it's a jet, it's going to go faster, you need bigger stabilizer. They started doing taxi tests, just basically going along the runway back and forth. They began in October of 1945, and it was quickly found that the heat shields that they had installed under the fuselage to shield it from heat, they needed to be upgraded. It was the jet exhaust from the jet engines melted the duralumin skin at the rear of the plane, as well as it was a tripod landing gear still, like a piston-driven aircraft. So it had a little small swivel tail wheel, and the jet engine's exhaust was actually melting that tail wheel. So while the modifications were being made to the first plane, a second prototype was completed featuring an enlarged tailplane and a solid steel tail wheel to keep it from melting. During wind tunnel testing in February of 1946, the Council of People's Commissars issued requirements that the plane should have a top speed of 480 miles per hour at sea level and about 530 miles per hour at 16,000 feet, and should be able to climb to the altitude in about 4.5 minutes or less, and that the range should be 310 miles at 90% maximum speed. Two prototypes were available for testing by September 1st, 1946. During the public test flights of the aircraft, representatives of Yakovlev and Mikoyan Gurevich, both brought jet planes that had been ordered, the Yak-15 and the MiG-9. The representatives of the two organizations tossed a coin, actually, to decide which of the aircraft would be the first Soviet jet plane to take flight. I made a video on the MiG-9 too, so if you haven't watched that one, check it out. I have videos on YouTube and BitChute now, so... anyways, Yakovlev lost the coin toss, and the MiG-9 was officially the first Soviet jet engine to fly that day. The day after the aerial display, Joseph Stalin, the big guy, ordered the Yakovlev and the Mikoyan Gurevich plants to build 15 aircraft each to participate in the November 7th parade in the Red Square, commemorating the anniversary of the October Revolution. Although the parade was canceled, the 15 aircraft were completed in time for the deadline, and they shifted to state acceptance trials, even though the Council of Ministers ordered the planes into full production even before the trials had been completed. So who knows if they worked, but they got put into production just to powder some egos, I guess. 50 aircraft were built between January and April 1947. Even though during the trials that were still ongoing, it had been discovered that the thick wings of the aircraft severely limited top speed. So there you go. That's why you get this press stuff into service. The fuselage was still being melted by exhaust And the cockpit would regularly fill with smoke. That sounds great. From oil and kerosene dripping onto the engines. Um, but the aircraft was simple and easy to fly, even by pilots used to flying piston aircraft. So the decision was actually made to convert half of the existing planes into two-seater training aircraft and use the rest as a way to get pilots comfortable flying new jet aircraft. So that's a pretty good idea. You already got the planes made. Why dump them, you know? Um, a total of 280 Yak-15s were produced to the end of the year. The planes were distributed in small numbers to fighter aviation regiments based in the USSR, Poland, Romania, Hungary, Manchuria for use as conversion trainers. So basically, they were just taking guys and throwing them in these things and getting used to flying a jet. Um, the plane was never actually used in combat or pressed into service and was used primarily as an acrobatics display team's plane and a test platform for air-to-air refueling. The plane was quickly replaced by a successor, the Yak-17 RD-10, which, although very similar, had improved aerodynamics, a higher top speed, an actually Soviet-built and designed RD-10 engine, an ejection seat, kind of comes in handy, and a much longer range. There are no known original survivors of the Yak-15. There is a replica, which is housed at the Vadim Zadorazhny. I just butchered that. Anyways, it's a museum in Moscow where they display a lot of military stuff. Well, that's the video on the Yak-15. I appreciate you watching it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Check out my videos on YouTube and on BitChute. I'm over there now because I'm just trying to diversify. So anyways, I appreciate the view. Thank you.